Hey folks, welcome to our latest Nugget. My name is Brian Weaver and I'm the Vice President of Sales with NSA. Today's Nugget is going to be on protecting your Office 365 with Barracuda. And joining us to present today's session is Glenn Bell. So let's get started. So Glenn, welcome to our Nugget, and just as an intro, Glenn has over 25 years of experience in Microsoft and Internet technologies. Glenn is one of our senior technical consultants and has significant experience with Office 365 and Barracuda. So welcome to the Nugget, Glenn.
Thank you, Brian. Happy to be here.
Excellent. So maybe we could start by talking a little bit about Office 365 and why it needs to be protected.
Yeah, well, Office 365 really is a whole communications platform, right? So it ties together a lot of different communication pieces, right? We have our email flow, of course, right? But we also have document storage. So we have Sharepoint and OneDrive, really all of the document storage that we used to think of as being on-premise that's moved to the cloud, right? So then we also have communications via Teams, right, which brings together video conferencing and chat and really a lot of interconnectivity between all of those technologies. So when you think about it, Office 365 really has a whole lot of our keys to the kingdom, if you will, an awful lot to consider protecting. So when we think about Office 365, message flow is really key, though, the kind of the main component for what we really need to protect. Absolutely dominant right now. Phishing threats are huge, right? We used to think of our world in the past where we had kind of our four walls, and with that, you know, we protected with firewalls and so forth. But now things are much more in the cloud, right? And so now, dominatingly, you know, most of the intrusions that happen really are happening via phishing messages, over 75% now. This is just a recurring, increasing number year after year. The FBI, who I think doesn't, you know, have a marketing skin in the game, I guess, to try to deceive in any way, every year, you know, this number's been going up. And if we look at the phishing aspect of the types of attacks that we receive, just year after year after year, they keep increasing. 2020 absolutely spiked, right, with COVID. So, and that has just continued. So we really, really have to focus and protect our Office 365 environments, but also most particularly our email flow.
Wow, well, that chart really shows it, doesn't it? How that's spiking so much in the last several years. So now that we understand a little bit more about the risk, how is it that Barracuda can help us in protecting our networks?
Well, Barracuda really pulls together a whole lot of different technologies, right? So regional filters, you know, being able to break things down by different areas, different countries, things like that. If you have no real reason to, you know, receive business mail from a particular part of the world, you can restrict those things. Phishing protection, absolutely fundamental. Spam protection, of course, you know, that's our productivity. Antivirus, we got to make sure that those attachments that are in those emails are clean and not carrying malicious payloads. Reputation lists, they pull together all kinds of resources for understanding that there have been systems that have been compromised that are all being reported in real time and so forth, and those are brought to bear. And also link protection, which I think is probably a little lesser known feature that I think is really interesting. So link protection, what that does is every email we receive, right, our end users receive these emails and they have links to go to different sites. Well, Barracuda will take those links, they'll rewrite them. Those links then will be pre-filtered, right? So the destinations are checked against known bad lists of destinations, and to look for changes or things that might be not quite right in those links and help protect our end users from going to bad destinations.
Excellent. Well, you mentioned about how Barracuda can help us with message flow, but there's a lot more to Barracuda than just that. Can you expand on some of the other things that Barracuda can help with?
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. So all kinds of different features even as well. But as I mentioned, we really have to protect our Office 365 environments, not just our mail flow. So to that end, backups, right? We need to back up all of our tenant data, everything that we have, right? That's our SharePoint and OneDrive, our documents, right, our Teams communications. We want to back up our mailboxes to the message level, that type of thing. So full backups. Archive search, we've all used Outlook and done general searches, and I guess to varying degrees of success, I would say, over the years. We've all worked with that, I think. Well, having a full archive search is a whole different level of search. It's a search on steroids, but it goes even far beyond that. So it gets into a lot of company features that we could talk about later, but really a big addition to the suite. In addition to that, there's Data Inspector, right? Because we have OneDrive and our SharePoint data, right? So all those documents, we need to be able to go in and take a look at that data and know that there aren't viruses being stored in them. And even some content kind of points of interest where we're able to look at what's in those documents, and we can talk about that a bit more later as well. Incident response, one of my favorite features in Barracuda. This gives you an incredible ability to look at messages that have already been received into your system, right? To be able to look at those messages and have some control over them, and to even go out and pull and remove those messages out of users' mailboxes if we see reason for concern. Fish line, wow. So end user training is so important, right? Attackers really have access to our staff, right? They have access to our staff and all of our end users, some that are more technical than others, right? Or may have more ability to, maybe resist clicking on things than others, I guess I would say. So training is so critical. Fishline is a really well-developed product that will go out and give you good metrics on who's clicking on what. You can send out campaigns that are targeted as, emulated threats, I guess I'll say, so that you can then get feedback and then educate those end users to help them understand what to click on and what not to. There's even a few other email features as well, like email encryption, right? So Office 365 offers email encryption, but you do have to have specific licenses for that. Barracuda does include that for all users.
Wow, certainly there's a lot going on in terms of protection for Office 365. That's amazing, including user accounts and reputation and so on. Can you talk a little bit about some of the other things that can be done, such as backing up data? I thought that because you're on Office 365 and that's hosted, that a lot of people assume that data is protected.
Yeah, boy, it's not. So that's the thing. All of the data that we have in our Office 365 tenants are not backed up. There's a few elements to do with mailboxes that might allow you within 30 days, once a mailbox has been removed or something, to be able to have access to try to get that back. But there really is very limited capabilities and no backups of any meaningful degree. So what Barracuda does is back up all of the tenant data. So that's your Teams communications, your emails, down to the message level, right? The whole mailbox, you have to restore a whole mailbox, you can do that. Retention times going back over the years or days, it goes forever. So it really gets all of your data.
Would that be a lot of data to back up? And also, how would that be priced? Is it priced by document, by user, by incident? Can you talk a little bit more about that for us?
Certainly, yeah. So it's really simple. With Barracuda, the only way that they charge for this, it's per user, just like Office 365 has a user count, only there's no data limits, right? So you don't have to pay, for X amount of gigabytes of storage. You don't have to pay for retention time. You don't have to pay for how much internet bandwidth is pulled against the system or anything like that. It's just per user, simple. And again, that covers everything from SharePoint, OneDrive documents, your email message mailboxes, and your Teams communications.
Oh, that sounds great. So can you talk a little bit more about the archiving system?
Yeah, absolutely. So the archive search is what I kind of compare to being search on steroids. I know we've all had different degrees of, results, good or bad, from our Outlook searches. And certainly this is targeted at being able to improve those search results and allowing you to have a lot more criteria to work with to do that. But it's a lot more than that, right? So Archive is a complete archive system, and it's a business solution. So legal holds, right, from a standpoint of companies' interactions with vendors or clients or whatever, you have the ability to do complex searches, stack conversations between multiple parties, right? Pull those together, export them. You have an ability to deal with rights and permissions and to delegate even outside counsel or a staff member to be able to look at specific pieces and parts of mail flow. So while it is a great productivity tool for our staff, it's also a real business solution from a standpoint of being able to control your mail and know what's in it.
Well, it really sounds like Barracuda's got a very complete suite of products in regard to search and helping us to protect ourselves. But we all know that every now and then something gets through, right? So can you talk a little bit about the forensic capabilities, some of the tools available if something happens to get through?
Yeah, so incident response, that's a feature that I use often and I enjoy using. I like demonstrating this as well because it's pretty amazing at what you can do in 30 seconds or less. So if somebody has concern about a message, or I see something that I have concern about in a message, I can take any number of criteria, subject, sender, whichever time frames, different pieces, whatever you need. Typically just the sender is enough. I can put that into incident response, and then I can just do a quick query on that, and it will find every user that received a message on that message. So if 20 of our staff received it, I can see all of the users that are on it. I can see if they clicked on it. I can see if they executed a link from that message, and I can delete that message from all of the mailboxes in one shot. Additionally, I can also go ahead and put a block rule on for future messages. It will go through some steps even to look at relationships on those messages to see if there's some variation, and it'll put a 72-hour kind of a processing on it. So if there's some variation on it, it's able to sort of lock that down, and then my choice, delete them from all the mailboxes, either to quarantine or just straight up delete. The process is very slick and very quick, and it's a great tool that I use often.
Wow. So just as a quick recap, so we have a very powerful suite of tools that helps prevent stuff from getting in. If something does happen to get in, there's a very powerful suite of tools that helps us to eliminate that very quickly, very easily. Obviously, one of the things that a company would like to do is to help make sure that those incidents don't happen very often to begin with. And you'd mentioned earlier about some of the training that can be done for personnel. Can you talk about what Barracuda offers in that regard?
Yeah, so the training called Fishline in this regard gives your administrator a portal with which to generate campaigns against the user base. And with that, you're able to set out sort of, I guess, safe messages that simulate bad messages so that end users end up having choices to make about whether they click on them, interact with them or not. The metrics about what happens with those messages is all brought back. So you have an understanding of what's getting clicked on and what may need what or who may need some additional education, right? So these are really powerful tools. An awful lot of insurance companies now that are looking for cyber insurance or to issue cyber insurance are requiring some of these steps. And one of the questions on their list is, do your end users have training in this regard and have some awareness, because they know that the vast majority of intrusions these days are happening from these emails. So we really need to educate our staff. This can be done in a very, very positive way and very strong on the educational component. So it'll start to train end users. The more that they kind of follow a pattern of clicking on things that maybe they shouldn't, it will re-amp or build up the educational pieces to help curb that. And I just think it's a wonderful tool and a really strong benefit to companies.
Well, Glenn, that's great. That really covers Office 365 really completely. So that's amazing. What about some of the other Microsoft suite capabilities and tools, such as SharePoint and OneDrive? Does Barracuda offer more than just backup in those arenas? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mentioned at the beginning, we really need to protect all of our Office 365 data, right? And some of the tools employed by Barracuda in this regard uh, certainly will go out and check for viral load in any of those documents that are stored, whether it be SharePoint or OneDrive. But additionally, it's also able to take a look at content, right? So it will use metrics to go through and look to see whether or not you might have stored passwords in those documents, whether or not you might have social security numbers in those documents or credit card numbers, things like that. So you might have policies about what's allowed or not allowed with that. What this will do is bring that information to you and allow you to go through and identify which documents are containing this information. Your choice as to what you do with that, but I'm going to say, most companies have thousands and thousands and tens of thousands or more documents, and I don't know anybody that knows what's in all of them. So having tools to use in order to find some of this content is really important.
Well, that's really extensive, for giving us a really good overview of what could be done with Office 365 features and capabilities with Barracuda. Is there anything else that you'd like to discuss or mention about Barracuda at this point?
Yeah, I guess. So I've used a number of different systems, right? Obviously, I've been at this game a while, and I've used a lot of different tools to deal with the email flow. And this is certainly one I can get behind, and I've used the most at this point, and have the most satisfaction with. But to your specific question, I really like the interface on this. I like the user interface from an admin perspective. Um, you're able to see mail flow in real time and interact with that mail flow, make choices about what to do with it. Office 365 has message trace capabilities, but it's pretty poor. You're not able to really do anything with that from that screen. You've got to go chase things. It's very time consuming. I can see at a glance the messages that are coming in. And honestly, I would check out our webinar series to get deeper into some of the detail that we can really get into in terms of what this interface can do for you. But I love the interface. I love the time-saving capabilities involved with it because I'm able to react and do right away as an admin. And the other thing I like is how Barracuda backs you up from a support standpoint. So their support is phenomenal, quite frankly. It's phone support. There isn't a whole lot of that in this industry. That's a just direct call, and you're put directly in touch with the person, not on a callback basis vast majority of the time. So I find their support to be very effective, and I appreciate their support.
Well, Glenn, those are very important as well as part of supporting this entire suite. So I'd like to thank you for joining us for the Nugget today. I think this was very informative, and I hope that the audience that's listening to this appreciates it. And if there's any interest in learning more about this, I would ask that you contact myself or Glenn. Our emails are listed on the screen, and we look forward to speaking with you about Barracuda and protecting your Office 365.
Thank you so much, Brian.